Good day or evening, dear participants. In this second lecture of Module 5, we are going to focus on the different types of assessment. Let us introduce this topic. In this lecture, you will learn about the various types of assessments that can be used in education, such as formative, summative, diagnostic, and alternative assessments. You will also explore how these assessments can be aligned with the learning objectives and outcomes of your curriculum, and how they can measure the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domains of learning. Moreover, you will discover how e-assessment can enhance the quality and efficiency of assessment practices by using digital tools and platforms, such as online quizzes, portfolios, simulations, games, and adaptive testing. This aspect will be discussed in other lectures. You will also examine the benefits and challenges of e-assessment, such as its potential for individualization, feedback, data analysis, and artificial intelligence, as well as its ethical, technical, and pedagogical implications. Furthermore, you will learn how to prepare yourself and your learners for using e-assessment effectively, such as by developing digital literacy skills, designing valid and reliable e-assessments, and ensuring security and accessibility. Finally, you will understand how to use e-assessment in computerized examinations, such as by choosing the appropriate type and format of e-assessment, administering and monitoring the examination process, and reporting and interpreting the results. By the end of this module, you will be able to use assessment information to improve your teaching and learning practices and to make informed educational decisions. Let us look briefly at each type of assessment. One of the main goals of assessment is to provide information about the learner's progress and achievements in relation to the learning objectives and outcomes of the curriculum. Assessment can also serve different purposes, such as diagnosing the learner's strengths and weaknesses, providing feedback and guidance, motivating and engaging the learners, evaluating the effectiveness of the teaching and learning process, and certifying the learner's competence and performance. Depending on the purpose and timing of assessment, there are different types of assessment that can be used in education, such as 1. Formative assessment. This type of assessment is conducted during the teaching and learning process, usually at the end of a lesson, unit, or topic. The aim of formative assessment is to monitor the learner's progress and provide them with feedback and support to improve their learning. Formative assessment can also help teachers to identify the learner's needs and difficulties and to adjust their instruction accordingly. Examples of formative assessment include quizzes, assignments, projects, presentations, self-assessment, peer assessment, and rubrics. Take note that assessment for learning, AFL, is an approach to teaching and learning that creates feedback, which is then used to improve students' performance, and it commonly named formative assessment. In AFL, students become more involved in the learning process, and from this, they gain confidence in what they are expected to learn and to what standard. One way of thinking about AFL is that it aims to close the gap between a learner's current situation and where they want to be in their learning and achievement. Skilled teachers plan tasks that help learners to do this. AFL involves students becoming more active in their learning and starting to think like a teacher. They think more actively about where they are now, where they are going, and how to get there. In AFL, it is the purpose of assessment rather than the nature of it that is important. 2. Summative assessment. This type of assessment is conducted at the end of a course, term, or year. The aim of summative assessment is to measure the learner's achievements and outcomes in relation to the learning objectives and standards of the curriculum. Summative assessment can also provide evidence of the learner's mastery and competence and can be used for grading, reporting, and certification purposes. Examples of summative assessment include exams, tests, portfolios, essays, reports, and standardized tests. If you ask laypeople to define assessment, no doubt they will give you a definition associated with the assessment of learning, AOL, which actually is the summative assessment. The key word here is of. Formerly known as summative assessment, assessment of learning helps to summarize what pupils know, understand, or can do against the relevant year-level achievement standard for different learning areas subjects in order to report on achievement and progress. Assessment of learning is usually conducted at the end of a unit of work, be that topic tests, end-of-year assessments, and of course, public examinations. Assessment of learning refers to strategies designed to confirm what students know, demonstrate whether or not they have met curriculum outcomes or the goals of their individualized programs, or certify proficiency and make decisions about learners' future programs or placements. The purpose of the assessment of learning, AOL, is to provide verifiable evidence of achievement to a variety of stakeholders: students, parents, guardians, employers, and other educational institutions. Regardless of the thoughts on assessment of learning, AOL, and the objectivity placed upon these types of assessments play a huge part in any education system. They impact the design and implementation of schemes of learning, leave an indelible impression on the structure of education delivery, and are fundamental in benchmarking the educational performance of schools and entire countries. 3. Diagnostic assessment. This type of assessment is conducted before the teaching and learning process, usually at the beginning of a course, term, or year. The aim of diagnostic assessment is to assess the learner's prior knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and to identify their readiness and gaps for learning. Diagnostic assessment can also help teachers to plan and differentiate their instruction based on the learner's needs and abilities. Examples of diagnostic assessment include pre-tests, surveys, interviews, and observations. 4. Alternative or authentic assessment. This type of assessment is conducted during or at the end of the teaching and learning process, usually as a complement to or alternative to traditional forms of assessment. The aim of alternative assessment is to assess the learner's performance and understanding in authentic and complex tasks that reflect real-world situations and contexts. Alternative assessment can also enhance the learner's creativity, critical thinking, problem-solving, and collaboration skills. Examples of alternative assessment include simulations, games, case studies, demonstrations, experiments, and portfolios. 5. Criteria-based assessment. This type of assessment is conducted based on predefined and explicit criteria that describe the expected quality and standards of the learner's work. The aim of criteria-based assessment is to provide the learners with clear and specific guidance on what they need to do and how they will be assessed. Criteria-based assessment can also promote the learner's self-regulation and reflection skills and can increase the reliability and validity of the assessment. Examples of criteria-based assessments include rubrics, checklists, rating scales, and exemplars. 6. Performance-based assessment. This type of assessment is conducted based on the learner's demonstration of their knowledge, skills, and abilities in a specific domain or context. The aim of performance-based assessment is to assess the learner's application and integration of their learning in complex and realistic situations that require higher-order thinking and problem-solving skills. Performance-based assessment can also provide the learners with opportunities to showcase their creativity, innovation, and communication skills. Examples of performance-based assessment include presentations, exhibitions, portfolios, projects, and performances. Let us reflect. We looked at different types of assessments. Now, what questions should we start asking ourselves? What comes to my immediate thinking is, 1. Using your knowledge and experience in teaching and learning from the different types of assessments, which one have you used and why? Did the assessment provide the information you were looking for? 2. When assessing, what do you want to achieve as the facilitator of learning? How do you provide feedback to the students after the assessment? Reflect in writing on these 2 questions using the Gibbs Reflective Cycle Guide, which will be shared with you in this module. Compile your reflection in the e-journal available within the e-learning platform in use in this self-paced online course. Share your reflections with your colleagues at work and also share them on the Community of Practice platform, which will be shared with you. In conclusion, this lecture has introduced you to the different types of assessment that can be used in education, such as formative, summative, diagnostic, and alternative assessments. You have learned how these assessments can serve different purposes and how they can be aligned with the learning objectives and outcomes of your curriculum. You have also explored how e-assessment can enhance the quality and efficiency of assessment practices by using digital tools and platforms. Furthermore, you have learned how to prepare yourself and your learners for using e-assessment effectively and how to use e-assessment in computerized examinations. You also learned that using assessment information to improve your teaching and learning practices is equally important for educational decision-making processes. If you have any questions or challenges with any of the concepts discussed in this lecture, please use the discussion forum of Module 5 under Lecture 2 to ask questions and answer other participants' questions as well. Thank you for your attention.